Here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. I made up my mind, ain't wasting no more time, 'cause here I go again. So, due to the overwhelmingly middling response to my last video essay where I introduced it with a song, I will now have to introduce everything with the song until my subscriber count either tanks or rises to Miley Cyrus proportions of disproportionate dislike. Anyhow, but that song has a very specific purpose: to introduce part 2 of my Grossman commentary. And actually, this isn't just a commentary on Grossman, Zoltán Grossman, in the video that'll be linked somewhere. I made an episode about him where I took some of his talks and I used his talk about fascism to kind of detail the behavior of certain groups that he was on the side of during the post-Evergreen protests or rallies, the Patriot Prayer Rally, and so on and so forth. So what happened is two weeks ago, 14 days ago, Zoltán Grossman posted on the Evergreen Commons, this web forum specifically for the Evergreen staff, faculty, and alumni and students, this post called "Hey Haters, a few useful tips." Grossman Z. Hey haters. I've been hearing from a lot of you in the past week, since Benjamin Boyce's August 7th video disparaging my research on fascism, our August 11th Huffington Post article on another side of the Evergreen story, which I'll get to later, and the 8/12 attack in Charlottesville. But sometimes I am not fully understanding your abuse and vitriol, so it's not really getting to me. For a better quality hateful experience, you can follow these helpful suggestions. A. Please specify which article or lecture that you're attacking. I have a lot of them that you might hate, but it would help me recoil in fear from your vicious diatribe or surrender to your impeccable logic if I knew which ones you particularly hate. B. Identify the groups that I shouldn't teach or write so much about, and that you're accusing me of selling out America to. Is it Native Americans, immigrants, Muslims, Jews, African Americans, white farmers and ranchers, union members, geographers, North Koreans, Gilligan's Islands fan? Be specific. It's okay to make up your own categories. Often they're the most interesting. C. Be who you really are. One guy's profile had him currently attending a school that was closed in 1969. A Russian troll's profile pic was of a mediocre Portuguese pop star. Now, that's just sad. Before you can effectively lambaste me, you first have to exist. D. Don't lie. Grandma doesn't like it when you fib. For example, you might claim that I discouraged white students from being on the Evergreen campus during the 4/12 day of absence. Sorry, these number to month conversions are tripping me up right now. Probably opening with Whitesnake has just got me in this whole thing. But 4/12, that would be January, February, March, April 12th, day of absence. But the fact is that we required all our students who didn't go to any day of absence events to instead attend our class film discussion on campus, and we've got the attendance sheet to prove it. E. Save yourself time and typing. You can choose from this handy menu of hateful comments I've had directed my way in the past week. You can simply say, for example, you're a number 3 or number 6. Commie. It's perfectly acceptable to order a combo platter, as in you're a number 1 with a side of number 5. I know you have a life and a busy schedule, so I don't want to waste your precious minutes online. Here are the creative messages to choose from, all from comments about Benjamin Boyce's 18-minute YouTube video, Evergreen versus Portland Nazis, with 24,000 views and 400 plus comments. This was 2 weeks ago. It was one of several videos that the Evergreen alum has made targeting faculty, and others are much worse, ridiculing excerpts of our talks and writings, mostly out of context. Hashtag hipster voice, that would be me, message in the video that the 615 alt-right protesters on our campus only wanted dialogue is contradicted by the vile comments below his video, which he never deleted. They help reveal what really drives the new crusade against Evergreen's equity program. I'm going to get back to this paragraph, but I'm going to let him finish his points. Number one, here's the ones that you should select from. Grossman sounds like a typical Jew. 2. Grossman is a disgrace to men. I can't look or listen to him for 2 seconds without wanting to fucking curb stomp him. 3. Obviously, Grossman is retarded. Fascism is the merging of corporate and government interests. It has nothing to do with race or nationality. 4. Liberals are a cancer, and the liberals are the cancer cells. They need to be exterminated for the sake of humanity. 5. Why do all male leftists lack testosterone? They all look weak and feminine. Anybody else notice that? I'm starting to believe that genes are related to political beliefs. 6. I think if I was stranded on an island with you, I'd eat your stupid commie heart, Zoltán. Number 6. National Socialism is the exact opposite of racism. Multiculturalism is racism toward every ethnic group on the globe. 8. Look at what happened to the whites in Haiti. Look up black on white crime statistics versus white on black, then tell me who is the real fascist. Look at what is happening to the white farmers of South Africa. Tell me who is the real racists. Look at the migration invasion of Europe and the crime the migrants bring, and tell me again who is the real racist. 9. His favorite. Your mother is ashamed. I hope you sleep horrendously as a result of your own idiocy. That's pretty good. More importantly, I have a question for you, Zoltán, from the movie Big in the late 80s. I really hope you can answer this. Are you finally going to get big? I mean grow up. That's what I mean. F. I hope you can use these convenient pointers and have a more efficient and enjoyable 2 minutes of hate. Then you can spend more time out of your basement to bask in the sunshine. Have a nice day. Zoltán Grossman, member of the faculty, Geography and Native Studies. And then he links his 2 books, which I haven't read. Well, I should go up, but so I responded to him. I was told about this, and I went over there, and I wrote in reply, Professor, I hear you about taking things out of context. That's a tough one. My goal is to contextualize why the Evergreen Spring occurred, and my thesis is that the faculty and staff taught students that 1, institutions, especially Western ones, are corrupt, and 2, change is properly effected through revolution, especially forceful ones. Because context is infinite and narrative is lean, I've had to pick and choose. I have endeavored to link all my source videos and texts, which are, as you know, public property. That doesn't explain why I chose to deal with your statements through the lens of parody. The answer to that is that I felt your labeling of your enemies as Nazis and not engaging with them, to my knowledge, in open dialogue seemed cartoonish, and I saw an emperor has no clothes situation. I did find much in your previous talks that was informative and would love to do a follow-up if you'd like to give me an interview, perhaps to explain why, when Evergreen did reach its crisis, things didn't fall out like Gilligan's Island so much as Survivor, complete with faculty attempting to vote Professor Weinstein off the island, as it were. All the best, Benjamin Boyce. And he did not respond to me. And I'm not sad about that. Hopefully, this will probably be seen as a hateful video no matter what. Like, no matter what, I am what I am to whoever loves me or hates me or whatever. It doesn't matter. But I do want to get into this paragraph here. Here are the creative messages to choose from. All from comments about Benjamin Boyce's 18-minute YouTube video, Evergreen versus Portland Nazis, with 24,000 views and 400 comments. It was one of several videos the Evergreen alum has made targeting faculty. The others are much worse. Now, I assume that he's talking about the Naima Lowe video. And I do want to say that Naima Lowe is a very difficult subject to approach because no matter what you're going to do, you're going to be dealing with hate. You're going to be dealing with her hate, because that's where the story is. She's exhibiting hate, very explicit hate, very explicit racism and anti-cop behavior. And I have the documents to prove that. In that particular video, I humanized her as much as possible. Yes, I made her out to be a cartoon at the beginning, and then as we proceeded through her talking points that I took out of context, I endeavored to put them into context, but specifying which one of her statements perhaps inform us about her behavior, right? And so at the end of it, I made this large steelman attempt to say that she was justified. She wasn't right in cursing out faculty, but it's understandable how she would be in a state of frazzledness and be yelling at faculty. I humanized her and I apologized for her in order to talk about her arguments. And so I do apologize if I cross the line and I make fun of and I attack somebody personally, because personally, it doesn't really matter. What are very important are the ideas. And why is that the case? A human being is a collection of all these forces and all these historical forces, these biological forces, these immediate needs, and these frameworks that are going on that they're operating underneath. And the problem that I have is that these ideas that we each hold link us up together. And that's when these ideas can spiral into proportionalities of good or proportionalities of evil, or these ideas can viral out of proportion into conceptions of behavior or of a historical place or of an institution like Evergreen, where let's say that I did this interview with Brett Weinstein and his wife, Heather Hang, and I thought that was a great interview. I'm like, okay, we're finally getting somewhere. We're starting to talk about the Evergreen model. We're talking about the benefits of it. And then once we talk about the benefits of Evergreen, then we can go on and critique whether it's living up to the possibility. And a lot of the comments in those videos were negative. Were people, it seemed like to me, were people that refused to even engage in the conversation of how Evergreen could be a good place, because they were operating under the assumption that Evergreen produced the Evergreen Spring. And whether or not that is the case is an interesting discussion, right? Whether the model of Evergreen led to this or not is a different discussion than even I'm having. I'm saying that there's certain ideologies at Evergreen that have produced this effect. Whereas if somebody went to Evergreen in the capacity that I went to Evergreen and said, okay, I'm going to take a break from my professional life. I'm going to get into a little bit of debt, and I'm really going to concentrate on my mentality and on my skills as an author and as a communicator. That's what I'm going to do. And I took it very seriously, and I got a lot out of it. I don't have them right now, and I shouldn't show you you guys, but I wrote 5 full-length novels while I was there. I approached that education as a model to empower me, to give me enough freedom to really actualize myself in a limited amount of time, right? Whereas somebody else who goes there and is taught or says, college is about activism. The Evergreen model is for me to become active. There's this Christian musical called The Music Machine, and I think about it a lot. I grew up as a Christian, and this is just one of the things that we had. And the title song was about the music machine, and you put something in it and a song comes out. So there's this machine, and I think of it as the imaginatory, right? It's just this black box, right? And there's infinite freedom in this black box, and there's infinite pressure going on in that box. And whatever you put into that box is going to be amplified into its extreme. So it might be the case that, to a certain extent, Evergreen facilitated the protests, but at the same time, you're going to have to say, if it produced that, it also produced my work. And I'm not going to show it to you, because if I showed it to you, then I won't be able to be published, because I like to design books and stuff. So I printed them all up, and publishers hate when you do self-publishing. Even though it's not published in the sense of public, it's still printed, and I need to keep it under wraps. But anyways, you can poke around and you'll see different excerpts from these works. Anyway, so I produced something of a magnitude of it was close to 1 million words, and whether or not it's good or not is besides the point. It's rigorous literature. It's the creative writing that I wanted to learn. And then you have the protests, right? So if you have to say that Evergreen is at fault for producing those protests, Evergreen's also to my benefit to help me produce what I produced. So people who are watching my channel are collected from people who like my content. They like me to a certain extent. They either like me or put up with me to a certain extent, but furthermore, they're attracted to the content. They're attracted to me deconstructing and criticizing the ideology that is manifested at Evergreen. And I don't think that Evergreen produced that ideology, because you see protests happening across America. You see demands being made by students across America. So what it's very important to do is, instead of criticizing the individual, to criticize, to really engage, and not to criticize simply in a negative way, but to really engage with somebody's idea. And that's what I hope to do with Grossman's ideas of fascism. He says that I disparaged his idea of fascism. I did not mean to do that. What I did was I took his ideas and I applied his fascist thinking, or his thinking on fascism, to the protesters. And I said, well, I'm tying that. So I'm using his model to critique the people that he's standing up for. So to continue with the letter. It was one of several videos the Evergreen alum has made targeting faculty. The others are much worse, ridiculing excerpts of our talk and writings mostly out of context. And then I went on to say in my replies that context is infinite. Narrative is lean. The greatest writers, and I'm not one of them, but the greatest writers put us in a world where we can feel that world, even though they only reveal a tiny bit of the world. That whole world that they have imagined and spent years of their lives, presumably, or potentially years of their lives on, are distilled into these sentences that do not go and point to everything. Because context is essentially infinite. The only context that matters is the stuff that has to do with the character interacting with the environment that forwards our attention along that arc, however the shape of the arc is. But there are certain abilities that a writer has, and I thought of it this way as I studied writing, because at Evergreen I looked at writing, and I looked at people reading writing, I looked at writing about writing, a lot of that, and a lot of writing, and then I produced writing that's fiction, and then writing about fiction. And I come to the conclusion for myself that what I needed to really learn is, where do I write from? What is my relationship with regards to telling the story? Right? Where am I coming from? Because that coming from connects me subconsciously, and not subconsciously in a psychological sense, but subconsciously in an intuitive sense. Underneath my knowing, underneath my speaking, there is a connection to that world that I'm talking about, or the character that I'm speaking through, or that's speaking through me. So when I go forth with the Evergreen video series, in a sense, what I'm doing is I'm taking my studies in multiple genres, and I've been trying for 20 years, and I've been failing at it, is to create a story that's created out of stories. Right? To take all these different genres and reduce them down to Legos, and then show how story is infinitely constructible, where you can have all these different worlds coming together, right? So all these different stories, and I think of it as polylinearity. It's not non-linear. There's multiple linearities, and a linearity has to do with a plot arc, or it has to do with a character, or it has to do with an object, or it has to do with all these different particles of the text, even to certain phrases, or certain even timings of phrases, like certain meters and stuff. They all have their own linearity, their linearity of development and mutation as they intersect. So what I'm trying to do with the Evergreen video series is to take this completely complex, irreducible event, right, where we all come to it and say, wow, we all have a reaction to the event, but if you actually look at the event has infinite context. There's infinite ways of making sense out of why things happened, or how things got that way. And what I'm attempting to do is to show the possibility of a fractured narrative that attacks a whole, it attacks a subject, or it represents, let's say, it represents a subject from a multiple different amount of distinct positions, so that we can see this from a from a three-dimensional view, or a four-dimensional view, right? To see this object, this Evergreen event, and all the different people that were involved in it. So that when he accuses me, and rightly so, he says, I'm taking what the teachers are saying out of context. And I'm taking them out of the context that they said them and applying them to the context of that Evergreen story. And it's going to be partial. A couple other criticisms that I do want to mention is one that I am a reactionary. Somebody called me a reactionary, and 2 people have called me a bigot so far. And I want to say, as a side note, bigot is being misused. Bigot means somebody who refuses to listen to any other idea. So whenever you see somebody on the internet or in life calling somebody else a bigot, they're actually talking about themselves usually. They're usually signaling their inability to look at something from a different position than they've already taken. And so, in a sense, I do that too. Even though I say that I'm trying to tell this story from a multiple different amount of views, I'm constantly coming back and saying, you know what? Intersectionality is a really horrible thing, right? The path of progressivism, as it wants to shut down speech, is corrupt in its core, and it's only about shutting down certain sorts of speech in order for certain groups to have power. And essentially that it will always be better to make value than to take value. It will always be better. It will always be more empowering to learn how to create something than how to dismantle something. And that is the largest fault that I have with the part of Evergreen that I'm talking about, this critical aspect of Evergreen, this critical race theory that has grown to this really big, huge explosion at Evergreen, but is at every other college. It's all over the place. Not everyone, but it's all over the place. This stuff is all over the place. So perhaps the Evergreen model allowed that to really show its true colors. So in a sense, perhaps the experiment was not flawed. Perhaps this was the canary in the coal mine, so to speak. Right? Perhaps Evergreen showed us the rapid development of certain ways of thinking and the ultimate conclusion of certain ways of thinking because it is so free and so empowering in a number of different ways. So perhaps it allowed me to get to a place where I can do certain things. I don't know if I'm successful or not. I want to claim that I'm successful or not. But there are a number of Evergreen graduates who actually are able to be incredible people in the world. Incredible beneficiaries to the mankind. And the thing is that, like, when we go on the road, we pass 10,000 cars a week, maybe 100,000 cars a week, and the only ones that we remember are the car crashes, right? Are the ones that are fancy, right? So, it's very rare for somebody, it's actually very rare for a crisis to occur, and it's very rare for somebody to have a super duper fancy car, in the sense of somebody really actualizing Evergreen. Whether or not I did that myself, I know that it's still possible. Here I go again on my... So to finish up with Grossman, he says that I'm taking people out of context, I'm targeting faculty, he loves that word. Hashtag Hipster Boyce's message in the video that the 615 alt-right protesters on our campus only wanted dialogue is contradicted by the vile comments below his video, which he never deleted. Now, that I don't understand how a professor, and this is where I get personal, Grossman, Zoltán, Grossman, how do certain people in the YouTube channel being bigots or being anti-dialogue prove that this other group who's not on the internet, who is actually at Evergreen on 615, are not into dialogue? If you actually go and talk to your enemies, Mr. Grossman, then one, if they don't want dialogue, then I will be much more respectful of your opinion that they don't want dialogue than if you don't talk to them and just tell me that they're not in dialogue. And two, you might have the ability to engage them with dialogue. Why not approach people as if they want dialogue? Why not say, you know what, I'm here to talk. I'm here to talk, because that's exactly what Joey Gibson was doing. Now, whether or not you like the method of how he did that, the content of what he was doing over and over and over again, he explicitly states it over and over and over again, is I want to talk. I want to talk. Why do you guys hate free speech? Why are you guys so filled with hate against white people or whatever, against America or whatever? Right? He was wanting to engage the protesters, or what he conceives of as Evergreen. He wants to engage with whatever he sees with Evergreen and see what is actually going on. At least that's what he's saying. Now, whether or not he really wants that, I don't know. But he made the motion. He made the motion to have that dialogue, and he got pepper sprayed in the effing face. And furthermore, my last point with Professor Grossman is that I would love to have a dialogue with you, and you're out of my league, so I'd love to set up a dialogue with you and somebody who you disagree with. And I want to see if you're willing to have your position criticized, and if you will allow for the possibility that openness and inclusion, which you preach, is only got to by letting go somewhat of our self-righteousness and our ideals. So there I went again. And yeah, there I went again. And I didn't get to that long article. I'll link the article that he's talking about, the Huffington Post that him, Ann Fishel, and Lynn Nelson wrote, which is a abominable article. It's just so filled with propaganda and twisted logic that I should go through. And you know what? The thing is that I don't like criticizing people. I really enjoy criticizing texts. So maybe I should go through and criticize that. But that's enough for this kind of remedial video. Have a good day. Oh, have a good Labor Day. Oh, have a good autumn. Welcome to Autumn. Autumn. Night.